Hi, it's Maya here, and today I'm giving out recommendations for science fiction and fantasy books that have main characters of color and are written by people of color. This video is part of the Booktube SFF Babbles, and I will leave a link to the Booktube SFF Awards Goodreads group down below. Let's get on with the recommendations. These are in alphabetical order by book title. My first recommendation is the science fiction novel Ascension by Jacqueline Koyanagi, and the main character Alana Quick is a black lesbian woman with an autoimmune disease that causes her to have chronic pain, and the author has fibromyalgia herself. Alana Quick is a sky surgeon, a spaceship mechanic, who would love nothing more than to experience life in space. She decides to stow away on a spaceship called the Tangled Action that lands on her yard looking for her sister. And upon discovery she gets to know the crew and falls in love with the captain. There is also a polyamorous relationship in this book. My favorite thing in this book is Alana's relationship with her sister Nova, who is a spirit guide. While Alana has chronic pain and wants to live her life the fullest in the body that she has, her sister would love nothing more than to leave her healthy body behind and live as pure spirit. They struggle to understand each other, but they do love each other. Now, this is a debut novel and it felt a bit uneven at times. I did like the first half more than the second half, but I would most definitely pick up the next thing that Jacqueline Koyanagi writes. And I'd especially recommend this book if you like A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. Next, I'd like to recommend Binti, a science fiction novella by Nnedi Okorafor. The author's bio says, born in the United States to two Nigerian immigrant parents, Nnedi is known for weaving African culture into creative, evocative settings and memorable characters, and that's definitely what she does in Binti. Binti is of the Himba people from Namibia, and she's the first of her people to be offered a place at UMSA University, which offers the finest higher education in the galaxy. But in order to attend, she will need to leave her people behind and board a spaceship, and on the way she comes in contact with this alien race called the Meduse. I liked how the novella focused on themes of home, culture, and belonging. It was also the perfect length, in my opinion, offering just enough information about the world. Now, the plot, or a small part of the plot, actually reminded me of an animated movie that I had seen not that long before, but that didn't bother me. Now, this might be on everyone's list, but I highly recommend the epic apocalyptic fantasy book The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. This is the first book in the Broken Earth trilogy. This follows the story of three women with magical powers that are considered dangerous in their world. The book tackles topics of systematic oppression and also who gets to be considered to be people. And about 90% of the characters are people of color. My favorite thing about this book and the series so far is the main character and how emotionally invested I am in her story. Both The Fifth Season and The Obelisk Gate got 5 stars from me, and N.K. Jemisin is one of my favorite writers in general. I also really loved her first novel, The 100,000 Kingdoms, but that one's a lot more divisive. Some people I know really dislike it, so maybe don't start with that one. Maybe start with this one. Then for some short stories, I'd recommend the People of Color Destroy series from Lightspeed magazine. There are 3 issues: People of Color Destroy Science Fiction, People of Color Destroy Fantasy, and People of Color Destroy Horror. The issues include original short stories, some reprints, and some non-fiction, all from creators of color. The only one I've started reading so far is People of Color Destroy Fantasy, and it's been really good so far. I loved Black Their Regalia by Darcy Littlebadger. It's a short story that combines comedy with dark fantasy. It's about a band called the Apparently Siblings. The 3 members are Native American, and the story is set in the future with a spreading plague. This story is also available online, and I will leave a link to it down below. Go read it if you're even a little bit goth. The Sorcerer of the Wild Leaves by Kai Ashante Wilson is a novella that I just finished last month, and it combines science fiction with fantasy. The story itself is a very fantasy-like story, following a merchant caravan and its guards on their journey, but the world has some science-fictional elements. The main character, Demain, is what is called a demigod, because he is descended from people who came from the skies. And he does also have some special powers. Also, the other guards in the caravan call him the Sorcerer, since he's a doctor and his medical knowledge is so far beyond theirs that it seems like magic to them. Demain is in love with the captain of the guard, who is also a demigod, and the novella focuses on their relationship as well as the caravan's journey through the dangerous wild deeps. I really like the writing style, although occasionally it confused me and I had to reread a few paragraphs now and then to get the timeline right. Next, I'd like to recommend a manga that I read quite a while ago, Tekkon Kinkreet by Taiyo Matsumoto, and there's also an anime movie adaptation of this. This tells of two street kids, Kuro and Shiro, or Black and White, who live in the Yakuza-run treasure town. Since it's been such a long time since I read this, I've forgotten a lot of the specifics of the plot, but Tekken Concrete is also hard to describe when it comes to genre. It has a mob story, violent and naive street orphans, but also some outworldly, surreal and mythical elements. I agree with the Goodreads reviewer Pete Lee, who wrote, "Few people have clashed magical realism with street nihilism the way Matsumoto has." Tekken Concrete won an Eisner Award in 2008, and I also really recommend the anime adaptation, although I found that I understood the ending better once I had read the manga. Now for a fantasy novelette, The Terracotta Bride by Zen Cho, who also wrote Sorcerer to the Crown, and while I liked her novel, I really love this novelette. It is set in the Chinese afterlife where the main character is forced to marry the richest man in hell, who also later brings home a new wife, an artificial woman crafted from terracotta, and it is the relationship between the main character and this terracotta bride that is the heart of the story, along with questions of love, life, death, and reincarnation. Throne of the Crescent Moon by Saladin Ahmed is the author's debut novel, and it's so much fun. This is a pretty traditional fantasy story, a bit of sword and sorcery, but it's set in the Middle East-inspired fantasy world called the Crescent Moon Kingdoms. It's about an old ghoul hunter, Dr. Abdullah, his warrior apprentice Rashid, and Zamia, who is a shape-shifting young woman. They investigate supernatural murders in the midst of a power struggle between the Caliph and a revolutionary called the Falcon Thief. I especially like that the main character was an old man who just wanted to sit down in peace and have a cup of tea. As always, I'd also recommend the beautifully written A Stranger in Alondria by Sofia Samatar, but since I talked about this in my underrated science fiction and fantasy books video, I will leave a link to that for you. And as a final recommendation, most of the stuff written by Octavia Butler tends to have a black female protagonist. I am in the middle of her Seed to Harvest or Pattern Master series, which is the only thing that I've read from Butler so far, and out of those my favorite was Mind of My Mind, but there are a lot of books for you to choose from. Octavia Butler writes science fiction. So those were all of my recommendations, but I'd also like to mention a couple of books that are on my TBR. First is Heroine Complex by Sarah Kuhn. This is a superhero story with a Japanese-American main character, Ivy Tanaka, and she is the sidekick to a Chinese-American superhero. Certain Dark Things by Silvia Moreno Garcia is a vampire story set in Mexico City, and honestly, I don't need to know any more than that. I also have the Winged Histories and Tender from Sofia Samatar on my list. The Winged Histories is a story of 4 women caught up on the different sides of a violent rebellion, and it's set in the same world as A Stranger in Alondria, and Tender is Sofia Samatar's short story collection. On my Kindle I have waiting for me Labyrinth Lost by Zoraida Cordova. This is a young adult fantasy book about Alex, who is a bruja, the most powerful witch in a generation, who has to travel to Los Lagos due to a spell gone wrong. And my Overdrive hold from the library just came in, which is A Taste of Honey by Kai Ashante Wilson, the second novella set in the same world as The Sorcerer of the Wild Deeps. The Prey of Gods by Nikki Drayden is an upcoming fantasy science fiction mix that I'm really looking forward to. It's set in South Africa and it combines personal robots and an AI uprising with ancient demigoddesses and young people with extraordinary powers. It sounds really good and it's coming out in June. So those were my recommendations. Let me know if you have done this video topic or just leave your recommendations in the comments down below. That's all from me and I will see you in my next video.